This is the first year. Did it with the girl.
Got it
The
done.
first year didn't.
Mhm.
Stuff, and so I'm done with just too much.
You're
And
really
they do
9
stuff
o'clock
throughout
on the
year, so-
computer,
Yeah.
9 on the other one.
Computer is better than,
Yeah, take your
And we
choice.
did that a couple of months ago.
you ready, Deb? Good morning. Today is Wednesday, September 4, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:01, I think it is. The teleconference number is 1-971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website. Live stream is also available at tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 o'clock p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone in the room who has signed up, or anyone registered online for public comment? None today. Thank you. So we'll call our meeting to order again and ask you to sign the guest list if you are here. And we'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Commissioner Scar if you would lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask again, is there any public comment? I see nothing, hear nothing, and I believe nothing online, so we'll move forward. Are there any non-agenda items that we need to consider this morning? And I don't see or hear any there. So we do have a presentation, first off, on the Halem Bay Watershed Council Annual Report. Zach Mallon, is that individual online?
He is.
There he is. Could I ask you
Howdy
before
there.
you start? Yes, we can see you. Could you tell me about how long your presentation is? We have another matter that needs to be taken care of fairly early in the meeting, but so are we talking 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or do you have a good handle?
I planned for about 10 minutes with some time for questions as well at the end, so 15 total, I'm thinking.
Well, that's just fine. Why don't you go right ahead then, and we'll take care of the other matter as we move through the morning. So
Excellent.
yes,
Thank you.
please introduce yourself for the record. And we do have a packet, and I'm assuming you may have some items to put on the screen as well. Indeed you do. So go ahead.
Indeed, yeah, let me get this rolling here. But for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Zach Mallon. I'm the executive director here at the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council. There we go. There's the whole screen share. Everybody can see this?
Yes, I think we're good. Thank you.
Excellent. So per our grant obligations, every year I present to the County Commissioners a report on our work from the previous year. Just because the county recognizes the Watershed Council as one of the ways that relationship works, that lets us operate. And so here is our 2023 year in review. And quick context for those who don't know already, the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council is a 501c3 that has county recognition and gets a lot of its funding through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. We're made up of stakeholders in the Nehalem area, which include teachers and folks with the Department of Forestry and a ag producer and private forestry, and we also have some private citizens as well. And so we try and bring in as many people as possible onto our board so that we have a diversity of ideas and opinions on the board representing our local community. Our mission is to protect, preserve, and enhance the Nehalem watershed through leadership, cooperation, and education. And what that means is that we work with stakeholders of all sorts to restore and enhance habitat for fish and wildlife in a voluntary fashion. And so we go out and we talk to landowners of various types of property and say, hey, would you like to do a project with us? If they would like to, we find grant funding and implement it. And if they don't, then we move on. And we get approached by a lot of folks often too. And so our work involves a degree of research, design and engineering, as well as implementing our actual on-the-ground restoration projects. We also do some outreach and education, such as hosting our estuary cleanup. We have a speaker series that has been a bit less active recently. And we also, from time to time, do nature hikes where we do environmental education about some aspect of natural resource management. Where we do it is in our coverage area. We're not the entire Nehalem, but we cover all of the Nehalem watershed downstream of the Humbug Creek confluence. So that includes the North Fork Nehalem, that includes the Salmonberry River, and then again, obviously, the Nehalem from Nehalem Bay all the way up to Humbug Creek. So we're in Tillamook County, Clatsop County, a little corner of Washington County, but we have quite a bit of area to cover. If you don't know the history, watershed councils were established in '95 with House Bill 3441. There are currently 90 watershed councils in Oregon, 59 of which are receiving support from OWEB. And again, that OWEB funding is primarily through Oregon lottery dollars, which is a nice mechanism for us. And then we also apply for grants from a wide variety of other places. Speaking of which, I always like to put our money up front. In 2023, the vast majority of our funding did come through state sources, with sub-grants from other organizations making up almost 30% of our income. Our expenses were 61% going directly into habitat restoration and 39% going into administration. But that number I find is a little bit misleading because it includes my hours that are going into, so my hours are billed as administrative, even though most of those hours in that administrative expenses category are actually being billed to restoration grants directly. And so when you kind of break it down, the calculation I have here says that 94% of our expenses went into a directly restoration related activity when you include my time.
Just stop him, Doug.
Yeah.
Just for a second.
Could you hold on just a moment? It sounds like someone may have his microphone on elsewhere. And Deb, can you track that down? You got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Why don't you go back just maybe a paragraph or so and continue talking about your pie charts?
Yeah, so I'll just start the slide over here because it's, I don't keep a script around, right? Anyway, but again, most of our income this year was from state sources, and that includes, state agencies besides OWEB that provide funding as well. And then our second largest category of income this year was out of what we call private local sources, but in this case, it is largely subawards from other nonprofits. And so, about 30% of our income for projects came out of those subawards from other nonprofits, and then almost 2/3 of our income came out of state sources from state agencies. And then when I was talking about our expenses, you'll see that about 39%, almost 40% of our expenses in 2023 were administrative. And when you break that down, a lot of those costs get categorized as administrative because they are my time managing an active restoration grant. And so if you actually were to move that time that I spend managing those grants and hiring contractors and doing all the things I do as part of restoration activities, more like 94% of our time or our expenses were directly related to a restoration activity. And only about 6% is activities that we do to essentially maintain ourselves as a nonprofit, right? Which is a breakdown that I like a lot better than this 39%, 61% that we're looking at here. We had a busy 2023, and you'll see that there's a lot of stuff on this list, and I'm not going to go through every single project. There's a lot of design work going on, as well as several habitat restoration projects that I've shared with you in the past. And so I'm only going to highlight a couple of these topics here in our talk because we only have a few minutes left. So we have a lot of design projects going on right now, which means we're going to have a busy 25 and 26 implementing projects. We're doing designs for tidal habitat restorations over at Coal Creek and at Bandy Slough. We're doing designs for culvert replacements at McPherson Creek and Harless Creek, and we also have a big project up at the Salmonberry confluence doing designs for a large in-stream wood placement right at the confluence there. In brief, Bandy Slough is a site where there are 3 residential properties that have a wetland down by the North Fork Nehalem River, and there's an old tide gate there, and the land isn't being used for production anymore, and so the tide gate has no real purpose in that location. All the residences are up higher out of the floodplain, and so the landowners agreed to remove the tide gate and do some tidal wetland restoration to support salmon populations. And we also engaged with PacifiCorp because their power line runs through the property. Our engineers have delivered a 60% design now, though at the time of into 2023, they were just at 30% designs. And we're looking forward to pulling this tide gate out and doing some habitat restoration there in 2025. So we're moving into the permitting right now. The Coal Creek tidal wetland restoration is a site where part of the property is still in production and part of it's not. And there's an old tide gate that's blocked open that's not really doing anyone any good. And the landowner had some erosion concerns. And so we're working with them on designs that are going to lay back the bank and plant it so that there's less erosion as that water comes through. We're also going to be working on some tidal wetland restoration in the fallow field that they have and replacing that tide gate with a bridge because currently they're happy with how well drained that field is. And that gate is blocked open to a degree where it's not particularly doing them any sort of blocking of the tide. And so the current condition is fine for them. So a bridge will be fine. And we're moving forward with that, anticipating construction in 2026. I'm also working on a set of culvert replacements up in one's on a tributary to Cook Creek at Harless Creek, and another is a tributary to the main stem Nehalem at McPherson River, or McPherson Creek. And these are going to be 2.05 miles of coho habitat that we're going to make available by replacing these culverts. We're working on designs right now. I'm anticipating a 2025 implementation for McPherson Creek, and then a 2026 implementation for Harless Creek. Pretty exciting to be able to get these ones done. I've been trying to get Harless Creek on the schedule for quite a few years now. We have quite a few active restoration projects. And in this case, I'm just going to highlight one of our riparian plantings over at the Malone property. It's at the site of the former Batterson Station, if anybody knows where that is. And we're planting through knotweed here along the main stem Nehalem, and then maintaining by using hand equipment to keep that knotweed down so that we can get a canopy established and thin it out. We're not going to get rid of knotweed here, but if we can establish a conifer canopy over top of it, that will thin it out and help hold the banks in place a bit better there. The Nehalem Basin Partnership is applying for a lot of funding. We're currently in the running for a NIFWIF grant for coastal resilience, doing a lot of wood placements and riparian plantings throughout the Nehalem Basin. It's about $2.5 million worth of work if we get awarded it, and I'm feeling pretty confident at this stage. But we're also going to be pursuing a FIP application in 2025, which is a focused investment partnership from OWEB in the range of up to $12 million over 6 years of work following our strategic action plan for Coho. We also have a collaboration with other watershed councils throughout the region, starting with all the way up to the North Coast Watershed Association, and then all the way down to the Nestucca-Nesco and Sand Lake Watersheds Council. We're all working to identify areas where we can collaborate to reduce our administrative costs. And so hopefully that will turn into some useful products for all of us along the way. We actually had our estuary cleanup in this year in 2024. You know, it was a good event. You can see this picture here. They're pulling out a hot tub, which was pretty exciting. A lot of other trash came out. We filled up a shipping container worth of garbage there and pulled out a lot of recycling as well. So pretty successful event despite the pretty terrible weather we had. In other news, we're looking to hire a second project manager here at the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council. And we have some other collaborations that have been going on in 2024. And we have a lot of really exciting upcoming projects, including we're working on Gallagher Slough with the 2 agricultural landowners up there, as well as with the creamery to get an upgrade to those tide gates at Gallagher Slough. We're going to be doing a lot of habitat restoration in 25 and 26 that we have on the list here. And it's a whole bunch of good riparian planting too. My list of funders and partners is too long to run through. And so I'll leave this up for about 5 more seconds so you can kind of get an idea. And then we'll move into questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have one question, then I'll ask Commissioner Scar. I'm sure she's got some questions or comments as well.
Definitely.
Yesterday, I received an invitation from the Joint Watershed Council. Happened to be in South Tillamook County, and they're having a program of a couple hours and a dinner. I think it's at the Pelican Pub, and it involves the ones down south. Would that involve you as well? In other words, how widespread are you in joining with others, or are you kind of standalone, as you point out? Would you be at this function towards the end of the month?
I won't be at that function, no. And I think it's an event being held by the Nestucca-Nesco and Sand Lake Watershed Council down there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of their, their council's event. And so I won't be at that, but we do a lot of work trying to collaborate with other watershed councils on a local and on a statewide basis. And so that collaborations analysis that I mentioned earlier, one of the things we've identified as a group of executive directors of the councils, from Clatsop County down into Tillamook, is that we have a messaging issue to an extent where people just don't know we exist or what we do a lot of the time. And we're small organizations with very few staff. And so we've been working together to craft a essentially outreach program that we all can implement that will get us in front of a lot more people, explaining who we are, what we do, and the kind of services we can provide. So I talked about culvert replacements and erosion control as two topics that, you know, some of my projects that I'm working on focus with. And you know, when folks find out that we can do riparian plantings for them, or we can do culvert replacements for their, you know, small community of 5-6 landowners or whatever, they're pretty excited about it because culverts are really expensive to do. And so we're collectively working on trying to get that message out to people a bit better. On a statewide basis, I'm also involved with the Network of Oregon Watershed Councils. And presently I'm working on helping us plan a statewide conference for Watershed Council employees that will be happening next May. And so we stay engaged on both a local and a statewide level, even though we're geographically restricted in our direct activities, right? I can't do riparian plantings onto Miami because it's outside of my coverage area, but I can do them, you know, all the way up to almost Highway 26 on the Nehalem.
Understand. Thank you, Commissioner Scar.
Yeah.
Would you have some observations?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I do have a number of comments. So first, Zach, it's good to see you.
Good to
I've
see you
had the
too.
opportunity the last 3 years to actually see the good work that's being done when I've been up at the Nehalem River Ranch. We have a Tillamook Estuaries Partnership does a farm to table dinner, and that anybody who's interested, come to their Bounty on the Bay event. You can bid on it against us. It's super fun. But I've been able to attend the event, and then the farm to table dinner 3 years in a row. And there's just an area that's been planted that we've been able to watch grow over the last 3 years. And it's really, really interesting to watch the work of the watershed councils on the ground. This is on an active working ranch where they raise cattle and they have chickens and they have goats. And there's just a ton of things happening there. But in addition, they have flowers. It's amazing. But they have done some really intentional work around their habitat restoration there, it's really interesting. So I appreciate the work that you all do. I'm familiar with it firsthand. And, you know, I'm excited that it's continuing, and the projects that you have queued up there, are fantastic. You know, we need to do our habitat restoration work. If Commissioner Yamamoto were still sitting here, he would say, you know, that no one does it better than Tillamook County. And when he says that, what he really means is our watershed councils in partnership with the Estuaries Partnership and others. You know, the county itself participates as we replace culverts and bridges along roads, but really it is these organizations that are doing our habitat work that are to be thanked and honored and appreciated, because it takes a lot of work. You know, there's the relationship building that has to happen with your farmers and others, your property owners who have the actual rights to the land where we want to improve our habitats, right? That isn't something you can just go in and say we must do. And for watershed councils in particular, they are not regulatory. They do not have any leverage to say, I'm showing up on your property and fixing this. They have to say, hi, how are you? How can I help you? And really engage with and encourage property owners to participate. And then they have to provide a really good service, which they do. So Zach, I'm always so impressed with the work of our watershed councils and appreciate greatly what you are doing. You know, we know that salmon habitat is so crucial in Tillamook County, and we know that the work that you're doing along the rivers is just a huge part of that. We need the trees, we need the shade, we need to take care of our invasives. I mean, there's just a million things about it. So I would be remiss if I didn't throw the biop out here. We always have to talk about the biological opinion and its sort of unknown effect on some of the work that you do and how that will change permits that are required, et cetera, which seems a little backwards since FEMA is asking us to protect salmon habitat at all costs. They also are saying the actual act of improving salmon habitat is a disturbance to salmon habitat that will have to be permitted in a different way. So we're all headed into a new world. I have no doubt that as watershed councils, you're aware and will be working hard on making sure your work goes forward. So I will be even more appreciative of your work going forward because I know it's going to be harder to get it on the ground. So mine is just a great big thank you for all that you do, and just look forward to hopefully being out there on the ranch in year 4 to see how that continues to grow.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would also agree that what you folks do, and I'm not all that familiar with your end of the county, but I'm certainly familiar with what goes on in the Nestucca Sand Lake area down that way, and the little creeks that run into Nescoin, the Nescoin group. I do have one question. I don't think you mentioned the Salmon Superhighway program. Are you affiliated or connected in some way with that? And because they do so many good things as well in terms of replacing culverts and opening fish passage. So could you comment on your relationship with them?
Yeah, so the Salmon Superhighway was set up back, was it about 8-10 years ago? I think they started that programming. And at the time, this is before I took over the council, and at the time, they were trying to make sure they had a concentrated, focused area to apply for that funding with. And the Nehalem hadn't yet done a thorough culvert inventory and assessment. And so when that was applied for and when that program was set up, we didn't have that assessment that we needed at the time to be a part of it. So actually, the Salmon Superhighway doesn't extend up into the Nehalem, unfortunately. That said, we are applying for a big block grant, very similar to what the Superhighway started off with, which is that OWEB Focused Investment Partnership grant. And when that happens, our culverts that we have in our culvert assessment and all of our prioritized reaches for in-stream wood placement and for riparian planting and for tidal wetland restoration, all of those are going to be options to include in that application. And so we're going to have something similar so long as we get awarded the money. But we're not part of that program specifically, no.
Okay. Well, thank you. And understand that you certainly do good work. So I think we do have your handout, and you're not asking for anything. It's informative, and I think you've done an excellent job in informing not only us, but those who might be tuning in. I'll make one last call. Any final remarks, Commissioner?
I think I was trying to remember what David always said, and I think it's when it comes to clean water, habitat restoration, and salmon recovery, no one does it better. So that should probably be enshrined on the wall here somewhere. So I will just channel him for a minute and thank you once again for the great work you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think probably what you do is a large part of why many of us choose to live here, because I can go from my front door and go 2 blocks and once in a while, not so much anymore, but catch a 30-pound salmon, and you can't do that in Kansas. So what you do and why you do it and how you do it, I think is very important. And I think it's an untold story, and hopefully this conversation today will help get the word out. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I do think that the how we do it is so important, with just the fact that we are going and saying, what can we do for you? How can we help you live with salmon habitat better? You know, that's the question we're asking landowners. So thank you so much for having me today, and hope you all have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Will I have you back again soon? Okay,
Yeah,
we're going to take one item out of order because the individual has another engagement. So I'd like to move item number 17 up, and I'll read the title of that. It's consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment of members to the Tillamook County Housing Commission, and Parker Salmons, Housing Coordinator, will be presenting that. So good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for accommodating my schedule today. The Executive Council or Committee of the Housing Commission interviewed many wonderful candidates, and at the time we would like to recommend appointing 3 of them. Marlisa De Jesus to the nonprofit position, and Heidi Holzgraf and Jackie Reiser to the at-large positions. Jackie Reiser is an accomplished sustainable design build architect who's been living here for several years and is very passionate about the housing situation here. Marlisa De Jesus is the program coordinator for the Houseless Action Network, and we feel very strongly it's important to have representation from the nonprofit community on the Housing Commission. And Heidi Holzgraf is part of a husband and wife development team from the Hebo Beaver area, and we're really excited to have representation from both the development community and the Hebo Beaver geographic area. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You know, I don't have any questions. I am blessed to know all three of these people, in fact, from different places in my life, and I am excited to have them all serving on the Housing Commission. The Housing Commission is making great strides. You know, we've got a lot of housing starts happening in our community, and having these voices at the table is an important part of both making sure we stay focused in the right areas in regard to the housing that's needed, but also hear the voices of those who are working to develop housing so that we can understand what we can do better, how we can arrange what the county's requirements are, et cetera, to do better. So just super excited about all three.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to have them.
And I too have no questions. I don't know all those individuals, but I think what you're doing and what I'm hearing around the fringes is you're doing good things and it's beginning to show. And I think if we drive around Tillamook County now, as we all do, we see things happening. And I drove by a brand new home, and when I see the wood beams and all, you know, it may not be something you've had to do with it, but there's still a fair amount of activity, notwithstanding all the complaining we hear about interest rates and other things. And so it's happening, and I think you've been a large part of it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We strive to encourage a developer-friendly environment here to help get the housing we need.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chair, in consideration of order number 24-056 in the matter of the appointment of members to the Tillamook County Housing Commission, I move approval.
And I will second. Are there any additional questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you so
Parker.
much.
Thank you. And thank you, Parker.
Okay, let's go to item number 6. Consideration of a resolution in the matter of proclaiming the month of September as National Suicide Prevention Month in Tillamook County, Oregon. And with us, I think we have Sarah Ermer, Prevention Specialist, and Amanda Ferret, if I said that right, also with Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition. So please introduce yourselves, if you would, for the record, and we'll be pleased to hear your message.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, I am Sarah Ermer, Prevention Specialist at Tillamook Family Counseling Center, and I'm on the Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition.
Hello, good morning. My name is Amanda Ferret, and I am the lead for the Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition.
Yes, and so we're here just to talk a little bit about Suicide Prevention Month and its significance. Unfortunately, I think this is a subject that really doesn't need too much introduction to its significance. We live in a state with a suicide rate that's higher than the national average and a county within that state that is higher than the state average. And so unfortunately, I think a lot of people here know why this Suicide Prevention Month is so important. And this really poses a good time for us to begin that dialogue about suicide prevention, especially as we go into the fall and the winter that tend to be more difficult for folks around here. And so I hope that we're able to talk a little bit more about that.
And I just want to mention some significant dates that are happening. So on 9/8, it'll be the inaugural first ever 988 day. 988 is the national crisis line that people can call, text, or chat with if they are, or if someone they love or know is in need of support. 9/8 through 9/14, so September 8th through the 14th, is Suicide Prevention Awareness Week. So a lot of things will be happening across the nation during that week to kind of highlight suicide prevention and the need for those services. On September 10th, it is World Suicide Prevention Day. So again, that is something that's recognized throughout the world. And then because suicide is a worldwide issue, there is no culture, country, place that isn't affected by suicide. On September 11th, we are having a rock painting event at Bay City Arts Center. So the Averill Landscaping is nice enough to donate some rocks, and we will be painting some positive messages on rocks, putting the 988 information on the back, hiding those throughout the county, as well as kind of sharing some resources and support with our county on that date. And then the Suicide Prevention Coalition will be tabling at the farmers market on September 28th, handing out resources and prevention materials as well. And then we also hope to, we got that grant last year from the Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and we are hoping, they're waiting to receive the yard signs, but I don't know if you've ever seen the You Matter or Don't Give Up yard signs. We will be getting some more of those, and we're hoping to distribute those throughout the county and do some social media campaigning as well, just so that we can start to, again, have those conversations, address the need for suicide prevention awareness, let people know what resources are available, and that we are a county that cares. I like to kind of be a little bit punny and say you mooter instead of you matter, because, you know, we are all about our cows here, but we just want that message pervade throughout the county that there is support available and that your lives do matter, and that we want to do all we can to resource our county to keep everyone healthy and alive.
And so this is, you know, a great time to remind everyone to learn about the warning signs and the risk factors of suicide. You can do that either by going simply to the SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website. They have some great pages on that, or by taking a QPR class, Question, Persuade, Refer. And I will be hosting a QPR class that is open to the public on September 12th at 5 p.m. at the community college. And that's really an hour-long session where people can learn the warning signs, risk factors, learn to dispel some myths, and how to intervene if they're worried about someone considering suicide.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
This is such an important conversation, and it's an important conversation everywhere and our community. I think we like to think that Tillamook County is special, and it is. But when it comes to people who suffer from death by suicide, we're not special, we're not immune. In fact, as you pointed out, we have a higher rate. And a lot of times people like to sort of push that higher rate aside, and they say, it's because people come here. People that come and jump in the ocean, or people who come because they can find a place in the forest. But the reality is, suicide numbers are tracked by where people live, not where they die by suicide. And so it's really important that we recognize that for our community, this is a serious and significant issue. And I've been in Tillamook County for just over 20 years, and I've been involved in social services the whole time I've been here. And this number always comes out high. It isn't new, it isn't different. It's a continuous challenge that we face. So what we're talking about this month is so important, and we should be talking about it every month. But this is a great opportunity just to remind everyone and to bring it to top of mind for folks. I've had the opportunity to do the QPR Question, Persuade, Refer training. It is exceptionally valuable. You know, it's really daunting to think about, well, someone that I know is saying things that makes me think that they're considering self-harm, but I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid I'll make them do it. I'm afraid it will give them permission. That's absolutely the opposite, right? Or I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing, so I'm not going to say anything. Question, Persuade, Refer gives you the opportunity to explore that part of what you're thinking, and gives you, in fact, the opportunity to say, here's a few phrases that you can use. And you're not expected to become someone's therapist out of 1 hour of training, but you do get to know where the referrals are. That 988 number is so fabulous. We didn't have that before. You had to have the right 1-800 number at your fingertips. You just didn't know. Well, now we have that. But you also learn in the class, what are those numbers locally? How can you refer someone? So it's so important. If everyone in our community was walking around armed with that sort of information, I believe we could totally make the difference. So I encourage you, whether you go to the website, whether you go to the QPR class, however you do this, take some time to learn a little bit about how you can help, and then attune your ears to that. Listen to your family and your friends, because when people are considering self-harm, quite often they do reach out in ways that if you're listening, you will hear, and you have the chance to save somebody's life. You know, we don't hesitate to think, I should learn CPR, or, you know, now that they've got AEDs, I should learn how to use that. We learn about life-saving techniques all the time when it's related to first aid that is I don't know, say more acceptable, right? But we're afraid to think about learning the first aid that we could need for someone who may be considering self-harm. So I could go on and on because I feel really strongly this is really, really important. I will quickly point out one more thing that's active for our community, and that is there's a real increase in suicides in agricultural workers. That is a really hard life to make a living at, and that can be very challenging. It can feel so overwhelming. And in fact, there is a hotline out there that is specific for agricultural workers. And I think that's important in our community to remind people, because I think that it can feel like, well, that 988 number is for somebody else, or nobody's going to understand what I'm thinking or feeling. My world is different. And if you're in the agricultural world, please know that there are people specifically waiting for you, right, that understand. So again, I will stop, but just to thank you both for what you are doing, for bringing this to the front in our community, and really inviting everyone participate this month. Find the event that feels right for you. Go online and learn more, but take this opportunity. So thank you both.
Well, and speaking to agricultural workers, there is AgriSafe.
Mhm.
And Sarah and I both are QPR trainers, and there are QPR trainings specifically for those in agriculture. So if anybody is wanting to have those, they can reach out to Sarah or myself, and we will happily provide those QPR trainings to any group, population, et cetera. We do have to cap those out at about 35 folks per training, unless we come together and kind of then can do a larger group. We can do them online, we can do them in person. That's a part of the grant as well, is I am on call and stand by to do more trainings from now till December for free. So if people want that resource, it is available.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I thank you for mentioning the agricultural helpline. It's called the AgriStress Helpline. It's operated through the OSU Extension Services. And so I really would like to go out of my way to talk about that a little bit in my QPR trainings. And so I have some information compiled specifically about like suicide and mental health within the agricultural atmosphere. And so I really do hope to be able to get some folks into the QPR where we can talk more about that at length.
Yeah, maybe FFA or one of those groups at the high school might be an opportunity. My daughter, when she did her senior project, did the QPR and then trained freshmen. So she went to all the freshman classes and trained them when she was there. And I think starting our young people early to have them understand that this is a subject we should talk about. It is an opportunity to listen to and help your friends, because youth suicide is such a huge issue and so impactful to entire communities that if we can start there, that would be fabulous. So I would suggest maybe reaching out to FFA leadership and seeing if they might be willing to engage in that area.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I too would second the conversation. What you do and why you do it maybe is quite remarkable. And I'm glad that Tillamook County has this and has the two of you and others that are doing this. If you've ever been touched by this, I remember many years ago, a good friend, this was many years ago back in high school, lost his mother. And you remember that the rest of your life. I can remember the day I heard that today. And that was a long time ago. I do have one question that's maybe it's similar, but attached to what we're talking about. Oregon is one of the states that allows assisted suicide through the medical profession, and there are certain requirements. Could you speak to that? And I don't want to really put you on the spot, but how does that play into what you do?
Yeah. Do you mind if I believe you're referring to the Death with Dignity Act.
Yes.
And I'll be very honest, it's part of the reason I moved to Oregon. As somebody with chronic illness, I wanted to live somewhere where I had autonomy. And so in ASSIST and QPR and all those things, while we want to educate that there is hope, that we hope that we aren't trying to, advertise suicide as a choice, as an option, we also know that people have autonomy. And so I think that Death with Dignity is a wonderful act because it gives people that autonomy and that choice. And again, there are requirements and they have to meet those. But we honor our pets with compassionate care at the end of their lives. And I think that humans should be extended that as well. But in our efforts for suicide prevention, we always want to reach out to those that have other options, that let them know that there are resources, that there is a reason to stay alive. But again, autonomy is always what we come back to, that people do get to have a choice in their lives.
Yeah, and
Thank
so
you.
when we are having this conversation of suicide prevention, we're really talking about deaths of despair, people who are in a situation where they don't feel like they do have other options, even if there are other options available. Because one of the biggest thing that's most common in people who die by suicide is that they feel that they are completely without hope. And, in situations where someone may be terminally ill, there are very limited options for what can be done about that. But if someone is in an abusive relationship or is experiencing poverty, there are options and there is hope, even if it doesn't feel like it. And so that's part of what we're talking about when we talk about suicide prevention is getting people the resources that they need and connecting them with the support that they need, because all prevention is suicide prevention. If we can prevent childhood abuse, if we can prevent addiction, if we can prevent poverty, then that is all suicide prevention. And that is the preventing the deaths of despair that we're really looking to support people through. That's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do and just part of, I guess, the larger community that we all live in. So thank you so much. I think we're ready for, is there a proclamation or do we just motion?
There is. So would you like me to read, or we can have one of these wonderful women in front of us read it?
Would you, one of you ladies care to read this into the record? Do you have it? How about that?
It's like,
Okay.
it's better if you do it, not that
Yeah,
I can.
Please do.
All right. And do I just start at this matter?
Yep.
Okay.
Start right at the top and just read the paragraph, starting with the paragraph and go down.
This matter came before the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners on September 4th, 2024, at the request of Sarah Ermer, Prevention Specialist of the Tillamook Family Counseling Center, and Amanda Ferret, Chair of the Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition. The board, being fully apprised of the records and files herein, finds as follows. Number one, suicide is a public health concern that can affect community members of all ages and backgrounds. Number two, suicide can be defined as an intentional death caused by self-harm. Number three, many community members have been impacted by suicide. In 2023, the rate of suicide deaths in Tillamook County was 2.6 times higher than that of the state of Oregon as a whole. Number four, suicide can be prevented by connecting people with resources, engaging in judgment-free conversations about mental health, and a community commitment to reaching out to those who are struggling. Number five, with effective behavioral health treatment and support, individuals who experience mental health challenges can recover and live a life free of thoughts of suicide. Number six, help can be initiated through crisis hotlines. The Tillamook County 24/7 crisis hotline can be reached by calling 503-842-8201 or 800-962-2851. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline can be reached 24/7 by calling 988. The Agri-Stress Helpline, available specifically for people in farming, ranching, fishery, and forestry industries, is available 24/7 by calling 833-897-2474. Number seven, if you are experiencing challenges with your mental health, we encourage you to speak with your health provider about local options for mental health services. To learn about behavioral health services provided by the Tillamook Family Counseling Center, call 503-842-8201 or visit www.tfcc.org. Other behavioral health providers include Adventist Health, 503-815-2292, Nehalem Bay Health Center, 1-800-368-5182, and Tillamook County Community Health Centers, 503-842-3938. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims September as National Suicide Prevention Month in Tillamook County, Oregon.
Thank you very much. I believe we'll put this on the record by motion.
We will. I move to approve Resolution R-24-013 in the matter of proclaiming the month of September as National Suicide Prevention Month in Tillamook County, Oregon.
And I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion
you very
carries.
much.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
And I'm also going to be leaving some suicide prevention ribbon pins for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7 is consideration of a letter of support to the Oregon Department of Forestry for the Lower Jetty Creek Watershed Forest Legacy Project. And with us, I think we have probably online Mary Johnson, City Planner at Rockaway Beach. Good morning
morning,
again.
Commissioners.
You were on very recently. I think remember your face here just a few
Board
days ago.
briefing.
Yes,
welcome back.
thank you very much, Commissioners. It's nice to see you both again. I was actually with you last week to discuss this with Daniel Weir, who's with Sustainable Northwest, our consultants, who's helping the city with the Jetty Creek watershed acquisition. Today, I'm here to request a letter of support from the county commissioners for the 2026 Forest Legacy Application Grant Program, which would allow the city to acquire the lower portion of the Jetty Creek watershed if funded. As we discussed last week, this has been a many years long effort of the city to acquire the drinking watershed, which is owned by Stimson and Nuveen, who use it as an active lumber harvesting area. So acquiring this would allow for the city to bring this into a management practice and reforest that area of our drinking watershed.
Thank you for that. I think on our county call yesterday, I asked your mayor to speak to that subject, and he offered some comments and update as well. So, Commissioner Scar?
I think this is a great project. I know that there is a movement really statewide and probably nationwide, although I must admit I only know in the state, to really assist cities and communities in acquiring their watersheds. It's not uncommon for watersheds, certainly along the coast, to be in either industrial forest production or even, I know in Clatsop County, some of it is in state forest production areas. And while you can harvest a watershed responsibly, it definitely creates great challenges. And in the long term, I think for the destiny of cities and communities to own their watersheds and manage them the way that they would like is a good opportunity. So I know that OWEB is seeing that. There's funding coming out through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. This funding that you're talking about, which as I understand is in partnership with ODF in the application. So I'm delighted to be able to do a letter of support for this. The fact that Nuveen, as the timber owner, is interested in selling the property makes just the partnership of it all really in the best interest of everyone.
Thank you. And I also agree. I think Nuveen is one of the, well, they're an investment company and also an intermediary on these sorts of things. And I don't think they're actively harvesting, but to the extent you can get control of this and manage it maybe more carefully than has been over the years is a good thing. I don't know why any city would not want to control their drinking water supply. So I certainly support it as well. So if there are no other questions, I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chair, in consideration of a letter of support to the Oregon Department of Forestry for the Lower Jetty Creek Watershed Forest Legacy Project, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much, Commissioners.
All right, on to item number 8, consideration of an order in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus. Be Under Sheriff Matt Kelly, if he's on this morning.
Josh Brown.
Oh, the sheriff himself. Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead.
So I'm taking the place of Under Sheriff Kelly. He's in a meeting right now that kind of took priority, so he asked me to do this. This surplus is for a very aged Wells Cargo box trailer that used to be used for search and rescue. It's just sitting out there getting moldy, and I'm not even sure that it's serving any purpose for us at all right now, other than just sitting outside, being in the way, and getting mold on it. So we need to get rid of it, and that's what this is.
Thank you, Commissioner Scar.
No questions. Thank you.
I have no questions either. It's one of those things that eventually they get handed down or disposed of because they wear out. And we do have a climate here, as you say, that can will encourage mold and mildew and those things simply because of where we live. So, how do you get rid of this? Do you put it up for auction or hand it over to Rachel? Probably, right? That's not a Rachel item.
No, the undersheriff will put it on a public auction site to get rid of it. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, it seems to me then normal course of business, so I'll consider a motion now to declare it surplus.
Perfect. And consideration of order number 24-054 in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus, I move approval.
I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yep.
All right, item number 9, consideration of a service agreement with Summit Food Services to provide food services at the Tillamook County Correctional Facility. Sheriff, that would be yours as well, so keep talking.
Sounds good. Our cook in our corrections facility will be retiring this month. There is significant hurdles to hiring a cook that wants to come in and work with AICs, and we just simply don't have the ability to wait long term to find the perfect candidate to become one of our cooks. And so the opportunity to contract with a company came up, and that's what the result of this contract is the company. This company works with Yamhill County. They work with Clatsop County. Both of those facilities are very satisfied with their work. We've been back and forth with them quite a bit. They are very supportive of sheriff's offices, and they communicate very well. So this contract reflects all of that. Ultimately, it will end up saving the county money, because when you combine salary plus the cost of the food and whatnot that goes in, those two line items, it'll end up saving a little bit of money. Of course, that's if we maintain reasonably close population counts throughout the year. So that's what this is.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. It looks like this is a company, it says it's a New Mexico limited liability company. Will they be actually hiring people in our community, or do they make meals elsewhere and bring them in? How does it actually work?
They already have somebody hired that is from our
Oh,
community. They're just waiting for this so that we can actually get the ball rolling. They order all the food. They own the food. They store it in our facility. Their staff, which, like I said, has already been hired locally, will oversee the kitchen, and they will make the meals on site with the food that they buy.
Perfect. And is our, I hesitate to ask this, I know we've done a lot of physical facilities work lately. Is our kitchen in good repair? Do they have everything they need in there?
They have everything they need, but I cannot sit here in good conscience and say that it's in good repair. There's still a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed. Lieutenant Silvera is steadily and consistently working on getting that taken care of, but being that it's an industrial kitchen, cooking thousands and thousands of meals, nothing is cheap. So it's just a matter of prioritizing and repairing what can be repaired one piece at a time, as we move forward. So
Sure. Okay, thank you for that. And then it looks like there's a per meal rate based
Correct.
on how many we have in inmate population at the time.
Well,
So obviously-
the per meal rate is just a general cost. It's not a reflection directly of how many inmates we have in our facility currently. It just says that if it's X number of inmates, then the cost is at this level. If it's a different number of inmates, then it's this cost. So 40 and above is a certain rate, below 40, and then it breaks down incrementally to that point. So
Sure. Yeah, which makes sense because they're gonna, when you're cooking more, buying more, et cetera, the price goes down. I mean, it's just a reality.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I am in complete support, having run 2 senior assisted livings for a number of years and knowing how hard it is to find cooks that actually can cook in mass. You find a lot of short order cooks who come in and say, oh, sure, I can do that. But it's very, very different to do institutional cooking than it is to cook in your home. So it is hard to find folks. It's hard to maintain that. And where you have a 24-hour day, 7-day a week operation, there needs to be 3 meals served every day without fail. So it's a lot of work to manage and maintain. So it sounds like, a contractor at this point is probably our best bet. And ultimately takes a bit of the headache, I hope, off of you and Commander Silviera at the jail.
Well, thank you. And I think this makes perfect sense. Do you have any idea of all the jails across Oregon, how many employ their own personnel or go through contract services? What's the split roughly?
I don't know. with 36 jails and a couple of cities that have jails and stuff, it'd be way too difficult to actually, I mean, I probably could get the majority of the numbers, but I don't have those numbers off the top
Well,
of my head. Like
it's not, I don't need to know precisely. I just, and you already alluded to a couple, so it's, I guess my point is it's fairly common for the reasons given that it's getting perhaps even more difficult to find qualified personnel for that environment, and to find a firm that has some, that has done this before and has some economies of scale is probably a good thing. So, I've seen it in previous locations where I worked, where they've done it both ways, and it, you know, can be done successfully if you have the right people, like anything else. So I'm certainly in favor of moving forward with this. It obviously has to be done, and it sounds like it's been successful elsewhere, so let's get it done.
Sounds good.
So
Okay.
with that, let's entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of a service agreement with Summit Food Services to provide food services at the Tillamook County Correctional Facility, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, number 10, consideration of a professional services agreement 2425-006 with Dental Care LLC to hire dental staff, provide oversight and training. It would be Marlene at the Health Department. Good morning, Marlene.
Good morning. Yes, this is a renewal of our annual agreement with Dental Care LLC, or Limited Liability Corporation, which we contract with to hire our current dental staff in our dental facility for the health center, which includes a dentist and a hygienist and 2 dental assistants. We also have a contract for a part-time dental director. We will be and have been working with our HR department on getting job descriptions and the like, now that we've had the program for a year or more, to see how we can include those positions as county positions in the future, and looking at the financial feasibility of doing that, as well as the pro forma for an additional dentist and office space. So, but this agreement pertains to hiring staff through the Dental Care LLC. The total amount has not changed from the last agreement, for a total of $590,000. The agreement runs from September 1 of 2024 through August 31 of 2025. And the scope or duties as described are included in the exhibits, along with the salary ranges for the dental director, dentist, hygienist, and dental assistants. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have about this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Marlene. No, I don't have any questions. I know that having the dental be a part of the federally qualified health centers has been very valuable for our community, as well as actually, when we are able to be staffed, beneficial for our operations. And having the LLC was just an important sort of midway process here, as we went to adding dental, to making sure that was going to work, and you know, talking about the lead into the process you're talking about now, to say, is there a reasonable space where those become actual county employees? But in order to get the clinic up and operational and get staffing, the LLC was an important part of that structure, and continues to be. So we're extending that for another year. I think that makes great sense.
Thank you. I have no real questions either. It sounds to me as if this is simply a continuation of what is being done now and being done successfully. So I don't know why we would change it. So unless there are further questions, I'll entertain a motion to make it go forward.
Okay, Mr. Chair, in consideration of professional services agreement 24/25-006 with Dental Care LLC to hire dental staff, provide oversight and training, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Number 11, also from the Health Department, consideration of modification number 2 to professional services agreement number 6510 with the Smile Studio for federally qualified health care, Oregon Health Plan Medicaid, and non-insured dental services. Again, over to Marlene Putman, our health administrator.
Thank you. You may recall that we recently submitted modifications for our contract dental providers for an increase in their reimbursement rate. When we submitted the modification for the Smile Studio, we did not include an effective date for the date of the changes in the fees. So basically, this agreement under item 2 adds an effective date of July 1, 2024 in accordance with the modification number 1. You will also note that the original agreement runs through December 31 of 2024. So we needed to clean that up and make sure that was consistent with the agreement that we had with the providers, Smile Studio, and others.
Thank you, Commissioner.
No question. The partnerships we have with our local dental providers are very, very important. While we do have our own dental clinic as part of our operations, there's absolutely no way that we have capacity to serve the need in our community. I quote this number every time because it was so impactful to me when I heard it, that when we opened our dental clinic and when we became sort of the Oregon Health Plan provider hub, if you will, for Tillamook County, we received something akin to 5,000 potential clients that qualified for dental care in Tillamook County. And there's absolutely no way we can do that in our clinic alone. So the partnerships we have with dentists here locally are really, really important.
Thank you. And I would agree. This sounds as if in some ways this is housekeeping to get all the paperwork in order. But again, the fact that we have significant dental services available, I think is a good thing. A lot of people don't, for whatever reason, access dental care, and to have it at our public health clinic, I think is a good thing. So if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of modification number 2 to professional services agreement number 6510 with the Smile Studio for federally qualified health center, FQHC, Oregon Health Plan Medicaid, and non-insured dental services, I move approval.
I will second. Any additional questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And number 12, also Health Department, consideration of a personnel requisition for a returning retired employee, 150 days on call for the Public Health Seasonal Community Immunization Clinic in the Health and Human Services Department. And this will be Jody, if she is on this morning. I believe she is.
Good morning. We run a community vaccination clinic through HHS. The returning retiree, Robin Watts, has ran this program very frequently in the past. And so we are asking for Robin to come back and help support our health department program manager or public health program manager. Sorry, Rocky, if you're listening, I got that mixed up. Our public health program manager in running these very important clinics. It does help the community get vaccinated, reduce overall health issues as far as public service. And we are very well aware of some struggles the community may be having with the Fred Meyer Pharmacy as a participating provider. And that includes getting vaccines at the clinic. So HR is in full support of this. It's a returning retiree, but we're bringing them on as a seasonal so they can work up to 40 hours for this duration. And at the end of the 6-month duration, they would cease employment at that time. Marlene, anything else you'd like to add?
Was a great summary. Thank you, Jody. I just wanted to point out that we have about, 11 vaccination or immunization events scheduled through October and November. And we just really appreciate Robin Watts, who was our previous public health manager, coordinating these with the number of other public health initiatives that we have going on right now. So it's important for the community, And access is huge to be able to accommodate the need for these immunizations. And there will be some updates on the latest COVID booster as well coming up here real soon. So just wanted to add that. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I am, I appreciate Robin's willingness to continue to return and support this work in the community. I do know that it is close to her heart, having talked with her about it. She retired just, or was ready to retire just about the time that COVID happened. And in fact, stayed with us in order to help shepherd us through the, first pandemic in 100 years. And she said, this is what I've spent my career training for, So really, as an expert in the field, we are very, very fortunate to have her in our community and to have her willing to continue to help support our community through vaccination events. And we will have, as Marlene mentioned, the flu vaccine is here, I believe, and will be part of these events, as well as the COVID vaccine as it arrives. So along with typically pneumonia for our seniors who qualify. So, or those with vulnerable populations that qualify. So these are important events. 11 events is a bunch. And we just appreciate Robin's willingness to do it. So I am in support.
Thank you. And as am I, and I've already received notice from my healthcare provider that it's time to get both an HIV, let's see, flu vaccine and 2 or 3 other things, including, everything that's out there, I guess, and some of the things that we do every fall. And so, yes, this looks like a good plan to go forward, and you can bring back someone who has been on this program for some time, I think is a plus. So that's good as well. So if there are no other questions, we'll entertain a motion for this item.
Right, Mr. Chair, in consideration of a personnel requisition for a returning retired employee, 150 days on call for the Public Health Seasonal Community Immunization Clinic and the Health and Human Services Department, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take the chair's prerogative and take a 3 to 5 minute break here. We've got some items on the agenda, including when we get under board concerns, Commissioner Scar is going to discuss, at least in part, some of the activities going on with respect to the Tillamook State Forest. So let's take about 3 minutes and then we'll reconvene.
and the people on the other side of the condo, they had to.
Okay. Thank you. Let's reconvene Tillamook County Board of Commissioners on Wednesday, September 4, 2024. It is 10:16 and we are on our published agenda down to number 13. Consideration of a 2024-25 services agreement with the University of Oregon and AmeriCorps for resource assistance for rural environments program. And with us is Randy Thorpe, our Director of Emergency Management. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning. Yes, this agreement is so we can have my help this upcoming year. I approached the rare people and went through all the application process, very lengthy. And then we finally found somebody who it was a good fit. And so at that time, we needed to do a contract between the university and us to cover different items with her working here. And the biggest one is it's only going to run until July 31st. So it's 11-month program, which is better than 0 months. And the fixed price is $26,000 for those 11 months, which I think was a pretty good deal. And they will bill us quarterly unless we want to change that. They're pretty open on how we want. And I said, well, can we defer it 10 years? And they said, no. So anyway, so we've done that. There is money in the budget to pay for that. And she has been put on as a volunteer. So that covers the requirement that we cover volunteer liability insurance. We've already got that taken care of. So the back part of this is the application and job description. And so I guess I got really surprised at how, wow, a contract is like 26 pages. This is scary, but it's a little shorter than that. So anyway, she's due to start on Monday. And so I'm hoping that the commissioners will sign this agreement with the university.
Thank you. Sounds like a reasonable way forward. And I know you've discussed this on several occasions. Commissioner Scar?
Agreed. We have discussed it on several occasions, and having this volunteer come to help with emergency preparedness and with our local groups will be a great boon for the community. So I am in support.
As am I. It sounds like, well, I don't know where we're going to put this individual. Your office is pretty small. Have you thought that one through?
I bribed. Anyway, our great chief of staff has found something for her here.
Okay, as she usually does. Well, I'm certainly in support of that. And as you've indicated to this board before, that there'll be some things you can do and reach more deeply into the community and probably have some good outcomes. So given where we all live and the hazards and so on that it's around us, I think it's a pretty good move, and I think we're fortunate to have it. So I'm certainly in support. So if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of a 2024-2025 services agreement with the University of Oregon and AmeriCorps for resource assistance for rural environments program, I move approval.
I will second. Any additional questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Randy.
You bet. Thank you.
Number 14, consideration of change order number 1 to contract for goods number 6564 with Bayview Asphalt Incorporated for the 2024 Tillamook County Asphalt Procurement Project. Will be Chris Lady, our Director of Public Works, and there he is on the big screen. Go ahead.
You're muted.
You're not, you're muted, Chris.
There we go. Sounds like I was with the game day on the big screen. So earlier in the year, in the spring, we had put out for bid to get quotes to purchase bids to purchase asphalt. We went into a contract with several asphalt providers, Bayview being one of those. At that time, we anticipated we would be pulling more asphalt out of Tillamook. And subsequently throughout the summer, we've had to purchase more material out of Bayview. They are actually located in Gearhart. So we end up sending our trucks to Gearhart, drive through Seaside and over the top of Neoconi down. That has more to do, not so much because we really desired to drive that route, it's just circumstances arose. When we originally set it up, we identified that, upwards of $50,000 we would purchase from them. We are needing to and still need to purchase some more asphalt from Bayview. So this increases the cost up to a net total of $250,000. And the does not increase or decrease the schedule. A new contract call for bid will go out late winter for new prices. So
Thank
recommend
you.
approval.
Commissioner Scar?
No question. This is another one of those sort of housekeeping items. We know we talked at a fair bit of length going into this paving season about our paving needs, about how and where we get asphalt and why and when. And Chris, you just gave us the update that we just ended up getting more from this plant. So, I mean, it just makes sense. We need to reflect that in our contract.
Thank you. Well, I have two questions. When ordinarily does asphalt season end? In other words, when the temperature gets to a certain point, is that typically, can you go fairly deep into October, or how far can we go?
It's usually about the third week of September.
Okay, a little earlier than I was thinking, but
Yeah.
and then the
And-
more important question that I should have taken a little detour driving around, but did Sunset get paved before Labor Day?
It
in
did get
Pacific
paid
City?
before Labor Day, so lot of happy people down there.
Okay,
Uh,
well,
if
then
If the weather allows, we do pave deeper in, but as a general rule about the third week of September, it's not so much about the cold, it's about the rain.
yes.
So
And
if
it
we
does
can go
rain.
longer, we go longer.
And what is the temperature at which point you would not have a successful a lift of asphalt?
The asphalt itself needs to be 38 degrees and rising. So if it's projected to, if you start off the day with frost on the ground, but at 11 o'clock in the morning, it's 90 degrees outside, we could pave in the afternoon. That's a little bit of an extreme, but 38 degrees and rising on the asphalt itself.
Okay, well, that's good information too, and I'm glad we're getting some of the stuff done. I think the other commissioners, I get an email or two every week wanting to know when you're going to fix potholes or when you're going to pave a road or what are you going to do about this and that and the other thing. And we get to it when we can and with some logic behind it, and that's usually how I answer it, or actually the way I usually answer it is forward it to you. And that seems to work as well. So thank you for that. So if there are no other questions, let's entertain a motion to keep this one moving.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of change order number 1 to contract for goods number 6564 with Bayview Asphalt, Inc. for the 2024 Tillamook County Asphalt Procurement Project, I move approval.
I will second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. All right, let's see next, number 15, also Public Works. Consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 6560 with Environmental Science Associates, ESA, for engineering and design services for the Kilchis House Drainage Relief Project.
So ESA is we ended up redesigning Kilchis House a couple different times for a variety of reasons. This is a storm drain system that goes with it. Ended up being redesigned for a variety of different reasons, environmental concerns being one of those. As we went through the process, the original wetland survey was done 5 years ago with the intent that we would have built this thing a while back before we ran into some environmental concerns. The wetland survey has a sunset of 5 years. So we are outside the window of the approval for the wetlands. We did try to work with Department of State Lands to get an exception to the rule. We were unable to get an exception to the rule. We're unable to do so to be compliant with Department of State Lands and FEMA. we needed to go out there and complete the wetland survey. This is 75% reimbursable from FEMA for the work that is being done with that. And that increases the total contract amount to $106,271.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Scar.
Just, let's do it. We actually talked about this quite a bit last week and, and multiple times, the importance of this project for this end of the community. And I'm sorry that we've passed our 5-year window. This is just kind of one of those crazy ones, but let's get it done.
And I would agree that this is something that needs to be done, as I understand it, and it's just ongoing, and it's what Public Works does. So no issues there, and I assume that's in the budget and no financial issues, or you wouldn't be before us this morning. Okay.
It's in the budget. The one thing to add to that, this is that December of 2015 event. The Bay Ocean Road culvert blew out in December of 2015, and they are paving the bridge today. Next summer, they'll be working on the 2 bridges up Miami. So it's not just, county, it's the state level that it just takes a while for these things to go through, unfortunately.
Yes, well, I guess that's our system.
Yeah, we talked about this is 10 years ago, just about 10 years ago on this storm, darn close. So it's amazing how long it takes to recover from something that large.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for this matter.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 6560 with Environmental Science Associates, ESA, for engineering and design services for the Kilchis House Drainage Relief Project, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, thank you, Chris. Okay, next up, number 16 is consideration of an order in the matter of reappointment of members to the Tillamook County Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And with us this morning is Dan Keyes, our Director of Parks Department. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me today. So this is about the reappointment of members to the Tillamook County Park and Rec Advisory Committee. We've got just a couple of notes. So Marie Heimberg, Gary Knowlton, and Larry Oswald were appointed, but their terms expired on October 7th, 2023. While David Plowman, his term expired on June 30th, 2024. So what happens is that at the last the Park Advisory Committee meeting in August, this was on the agenda. We asked all these people if they wanted to be reappointed, were interested in serving again, and they all said yes. So that we submitted it to the Commissioner's office, and we have this report in front of you. And please know that Marie Heimberg, Gary Knowlton, Larry Oswald, and David Plowman are all qualified and willing to be reappointed again to the Tillamook County Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. If this is approved, Marie, Gary, and Larry would serve 3-year terms, and those would expire on October 7th, 2026, while David Plowman would also serve a 3-year term, and his would expire on June 30th, 2027.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Just as always, we are so thankful for our volunteers. We say it every time as we do this, but so much of the work that gets done in our community gets done by volunteers. And the Parks Department, being a special revenue fund, has a community advisory committee that really functions as a very, very important part of the community outreach, the oversight, all of the pieces that go with our Parks Department. So we are very, very appreciative, again, of these individuals for the service they have already provided and for the service they will continue to provide. So I am in support.
Thank you. As am I. I know one of those individuals, and I don't know the others, but I think we've had very good luck with the Parks Advisory Committee over the years. I've known a number of people, and as Commissioner Scar pointed out, they serve without any compensation, and sometimes they get beat up for something they've done, and so it's a labor of love. But they do it, and we have what I consider to be one of the premier park systems in the state of Oregon, maybe on the West Coast. And these are some of the people who make all that happen. And I'm assuming you meet with them monthly. Is that still the case?
That is correct. We just met yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, when we're done with this matter, I want to ask you another question, so don't leave.
Okay.
So I am in favor as well. So if there are no questions, then we'll entertain a motion for this matter.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of order number 24-055 in the matter of the reappointment of members to the Tillamook County Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, I move approval.
And I will second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. So my question now, you just got through Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, and you're still here.
I'm still here. Yes.
So how, and I know you've got some benchmarks, and there's, I think, some considerable history going back. Was this summer as good as or better than, or what can you say about what we've done so far?
Based on the financial reports so far, we're actually a little bit ahead of where we were last year. It's easy for me to say that really since about the first week before 4th of July, we've been packed. And it's interesting too, because we get a fair number of cancellations. So there's a lot of people out there who are just stalking our website, waiting to wait for those cancellations to occur so they can get a spot in our parks. And you know what, that really says a lot about what we do and the service we provide. But I think we've had a great summer. It really, we were just talking yesterday about the benefit of having Deputy Weber on board and having him patrol our parks is just invaluable beyond belief. And of course, his last weekend was this last weekend for the holiday. But it's been a great summer. It's been a great learning experience for me. We have a tremendous team that works hard every day, and I look forward to the future.
Good. Well, thank you. Were there any sorts of significant incidents? And I don't mean like a bar fight or something, but you know, where you had lost children or is those kinds of things?
We've had a few thefts here and there that you know, that kind of surprised us. Maybe it shouldn't, but it did. But otherwise, I think as far as major incidents, it's really been almost zero, which is tremendous because I've heard some stories of things that have happened in the past. You know, I don't know why the change. I'm not going to question it too much because it's all in a good direction. But you know what? Again, we've got a very dedicated staff. They're experienced. They know the right things to do and say when it needs to be done. And I think that all plays in part to the county's success in managing our park system.
Well, thank you for the work you do. Are you, just out of curiosity, are you working on a capital plan of some sort, meaning, you know, what the bigger expenditures over some period of time?
Sure. What's happened is that we've actually got quite a number of projects on our list already that I inherited when I took over. One of those is the development of an RFP for the rerouting of traffic at Barview Jetty. Ms. Harity's been tremendously helpful. I met with Chris Lady about it last week as well. We're gonna shore it up a little bit, get it in for one final review before we get it out. But well, a lot of people are very excited about that project, not only because it'll make everything look very nice, but you know what, the hazards involved with traffic going out to the highway and causing traffic issues, you know, is something that we want to avoid at all costs. And I think that project, along with the temporary measures that we've already taken, will help tremendously.
Good. Well, thank you for the update and information. I think it's important because Tillamook County is known for its park system, among other things. And as I said, it's, in my judgment, one of the better ones around. And, you know, it's large, it's well managed, and not every park has ocean frontage either. So
Right.
that's a positive. And anything else for Dan?
Well, I was curious about vandalism. You know, over the last few years, vandalism has been just a huge issue at the parks. Are we seeing that start to drop off a bit?
I don't really have anything to compare it to. I've been in towns and cities before where vandalism was very high, and I would say that it's been very minimal. Most of the experience that we're having from a negative standpoint is about theft at this point. And so, but I can say vandalism is almost a non-issue at this point, which is really a rare thing to talk about.
Right. No, and that's fabulous. That was such a huge part of what we were working with. And I think a pandemic was part of that, as you just had everybody out of sorts.
Right.
So systems back in place perhaps is part of the helpful part of that. So excellent.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll move along.
Okay, commissioners, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last items before we do board concerns, number 18, consideration of amendment number 1 to task order 4 of agreement 1141076 with Portland State University for the situation assessment project. And that would go over to our chief of staff, Rachel Haggerty.
Good morning, commissioners. It's a horrible title. It's actually our strategic plan. We've had an intergovernmental agreement with Portland State University for 17 months. It's been an umbrella agreement that, as we've moved in phases through the strategic plan development, we've implemented task orders. So before you today is an amendment to one of those task orders, which will effectively conclude this strategic planning process. So we've completed the situation assessment, vision, mission, values work, the development of focus areas, and the identification of priority actions in those focus areas. And so where Portland State University is at now is they have all of the pieces, all of the information, all the input from the county staff leadership team to craft the strategic plan. I've seen a draft, and so we are on the home stretch, and I hope to have that presented to you by the end of September. So this is an amendment that we had some savings under the work with the priority actions and the employee survey. It didn't take as much time as we had thought, so we had some savings. So we don't have to add as much to complete the strategic plan. We're only adding about $3,000 with this amendment, so it's ready for your consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I'm excited that we're nearing the end of this, and this was paid for largely by ARPA, for those who may be wondering or considering, given what we've talked about with budget constraints, is this the time to do a strategic plan? And it absolutely was the time to do a strategic plan so that we could be smarter and more focused, if you will, in knowing where we were going and therefore how we expend our funds. So the ARPA investment was a good investment in looking toward the county's future. So I am excited that we're wrapping it up and excited to say that in fact, some of the work is already underway from the strategic plan, and there will be more to come. So it's been a great process for us. We've had such amazing engagement with our leadership team. Tillamook County is very, very fortunate to have the leaders that we have as our department heads and our electeds, not meaning myself, but just, the rest of the folks who are participating in those roles. We really came together as a team to do this work and to vision for where we need to go. And it's an exciting time to be at the county.
Thank you. I would agree with Commissioner Scar. When I first became a commissioner, I learned quickly there was a strategic plan effort underway, the one we're talking about today. And I've been involved in several in other organizations, and some of them are well done, but then they get put in a folder and sit on the shelf. And I don't see that happening here at all. And I guess my observation would be on this sort of planning. If you don't have a plan and a strategy, you really don't know where you're going, and you become totally reactive instead of proactive, and you don't fold in what maybe you should really be doing, or what your constituents want you to do, or our citizens. And so this kind of puts its arms around all of that and makes it a comprehensive and cohesive document that says, okay, here's where we are and here's some things we'd like to do. And it's not about just wordsmithing. It's about who does what, or how can you do this, and priorities. And I think the group that we've engaged has done a pretty good job. They've had a lot of input and some pretty heavy duty discussions, and we put a lot of pieces of paper on the wall with various suggestions and wording, but when it gets all done, people buy in and they're part of that. And I think that's important as well, because you have the leadership of the county saying, okay, we were part of determining where we go. It was not all top down, where the commissioner said, all right, you're going to do this on Monday morning, and Tuesday you're going to do this, and Thursday you're going to do that. And if you don't like it, you can leave. That's not at all what's happening here. And I think that's important for people to understand, that there's a method to this madness, and it's not doing what a lot of governments are accused of doing, which is shuffling paper and then reshuffling it. It's a little more than that, and I hope people understand that when you have an organization as diverse as we are with 300 employees, you really need a pretty good roadmap, and if you don't, you're asking for trouble. So that's my speech of the morning so far. So I absolutely want to keep this going. It's got a lot of inertia. We've had some very experienced and educated people working with us, and I think there's a product that will not just sit on the shelf. It will be used, I think, over probably the next 4 to 7 years, and there'll be a point where it will need to be revised because what was necessary for this organization, say 8 or 10 years ago, has changed. I mean, nobody saw COVID coming. Nobody saw a lot of other things that have happened. And so it has to be a living, flexible document. And I think that's what we're going to get. So I'm happy to support this and keep it moving. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to take the next step.
All right. Mr. Chair, in consideration of Amendment 1 to Task Order 4 of Agreement 1141076 with Portland State University for the Situation Assessment Project, I move approval.
I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, we're down to board concerns, and Commissioner Scar is going to talk a little bit about some recent developments and some activities and maybe some decision points ahead of us with respect to the Tillamook State Forest and some of the things that have been done over the past several months, most of which impact Tillamook County as much or more than any other county in the state of Oregon. So I'll just ask her to give an update for anyone who's listening, all of us, and certainly take some questions before it's all done. So Commissioner, please.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and the time. As many of you know, with the Habitat Conservation Plan being enacted, we are expecting a reduction in revenue for the county. That will also mean a reduction in revenue for schools and special districts. This impacts 14 counties across the state of Oregon. And we are a member of the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties, which is an organization of those 14 counties that provides information and advice, if you will, to the Board of Forestry. When we went into the Habitat Conservation Plan, there was a lot of concern. Letters were exchanged with the governor's office, and a small table group of counties from that Council of Forest Trust Land group were seated with representation from the governor's office to look at options and opportunities to really hopefully backfill for the revenue losses that everyone was going to experience. That work was done behind closed doors for a period of, I think it was 9 to 12 months. I was not originally seated at the table. It was Commissioner Yamamoto. When he retired, then I stepped into his seat at that small table. We've talked a little bit publicly already about the outcome from that table. There were 3 options that came from that group that were ones that were potentially amenable to both the counties and the governor's office. Those 3 options still sit on the table. The governor's office has asked for an endorsement from the counties for one or more of those options specifically so that they can know as we go into legislative session what they might move forward. We talked publicly about this for the first time probably a month or month and a half ago. And their option 1, which keeps, I get 1 and 2 confused, but one of them, the first one, which keeps the counties funded, but defunds the Department of Forestry by changing how the harvest revenues are split. That was option 1. Option 2 kept the Department of Forestry funded, but defunded the counties, again, by just shifting how the revenue was split. Option 3 was looking at the fact that a large percentage of the timber revenues go to schools, and that schools, in fact, are funded through another mechanism in the event that there isn't timber, and that is through the state. So the state takes a look at the needs of schools, and it takes a look at how much local revenue is available. If there is not enough local revenue, the state backfills at a level. So option 3 was making use of that state mechanism to suggest that if timber revenue were removed from the schools, that the state equalization fund would backfill for those schools. So that was the understanding that was on the table in front of the counties as we had that conversation with the governor's office. And so that was initially the one that the counties felt like, well, if there is a backfill mechanism at the state, that's a conversation worth having. So that is what sort of came out of that group as we publicly started talking about these pieces. What became clear was that there was conversation to have with the schools, both locally and at the state level, as that option started to be discussed. A meeting was held at the state level with governor's office representation, school representation, and county representation, in which the schools made it very clear to us that the way the equalization fund works, they are not guaranteed a backfill, that in fact for schools there is some measure of potential loss should that timber revenue be realigned in its percentages. And that there's a great deal of concern from the schools about how that will play out. So we're now in a situation where, having spoken with the schools, it is not an obvious no-brainer go forward with option 3 with the state backfilling. It is really an important conversation that we need to continue to have to determine if there is a way forward, to determine if there is a mechanism that would put more funding into schools. And part of the trick to this is there are 14 counties involved and engaged. But Tillamook County, Clatsop County, and Washington County have the majority of timber revenue that comes off of the state forest. It comes to these 3 counties because we have the largest land mass of these 3 counties. So as we talk about what would it look like if that timber revenue came back to counties, for most of the counties, it's a small amount of money. They may be talking about less than $1 million a year that's in play. For Tillamook County, we're talking about large amounts of money being in play. And we are talking about school districts that could be very significantly impacted if we were to pull that revenue back and then not to, in turn, reshare it with our schools. That's not true necessarily in other counties. So I wanted to talk about this today because I think it's important that the community understand the challenge, but even as much more so that Commissioner Olson, because you are the voting member for the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties, and there will be a meeting held on September 12th in which you will be asked to vote on whether you support option 1, option 2, or option 3. And since you and I need to have these conversations in a public meeting, I wanted to get this conversation started with you today so that you would have the opportunity as our voting member to reach out to both the executive director of the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties, Brandon Persinger, if you wanted to get more information from him, more numbers from him, potentially to reach out to, if you would like, our superintendents, which I have been in touch with both Nestucca and Neocani because they are the most heavily impacted. Tillamook County or Tillamook School District is less so, although I have spoken with Matt as well. I wanted you to hear what was happening and have time between now and the 12th to do the information gathering you may need as our voting member. I am also hopeful that with Commissioner Bell being back next week, we can revisit this with you having as much information as you need to feel like you can ask both she and I any questions that you might have regarding the county, our concerns as it relates to what position the county might take going forward in what is appearing to be a required vote of the counties to support one or none of the options. At the small table group, we've had a bit more conversation to say, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. We can support the exploration of option 1 or 2 or 3 without absolutely saying we support that option going forward. There are a lot more unknowns than knowns in the details of what might happen in a legislative session with a concept or framework. But I think I know I want to state very clearly from my information and my participation in this is that we have no interest in defunding our schools and no interest in solving this problem on the backs of schools. The reason that schools option rose to the top for counties is that we truly believed it was a mechanism to access additional state funds for our schools, not a mechanism to take money away from them without a replacement. So there's a lot yet to be determined, but I did want to go ahead and make sure this was out in the air and that you had the information that you needed from me as the non-voting member of the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties for Tillamook, getting to you as the voting member.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I have followed it, certainly not as closely as you have, and I've also had a conversation or two with former Commissioner Yamamoto, because he was one of the original people at what became known as a small table. And I guess my thought, I've also sat through a number of the hearings and meetings with the Association of Oregon Counties, and all of which are public meetings, all of which you can watch from the comfort of your living room or your home office or whatever. And this topic now has been, I guess you'd say, on the front page for quite a number of months, and it's evolved into where I think, as I remember, there were like 15 options of how the money would be spread, and it was narrowed down to 3 that Commissioner Scar just described. And I absolutely would agree with what she has said. We want to do no harm to the schools here in Tillamook County, or anywhere else for that matter. But I also understand that the counties beyond the 3 that were mentioned, meaning Washington County, which has about 47,000 acres. I happen to remember that from working there, and that was one of my assignments years ago, was to look after the Tillamook State Forest. And when I was a question, I would call Paul Levesque. That was a long time ago, but he was an expert at the time on that. So Washington County, Clatsop, and Tillamook basically is where the Tillamook Forest is, which is the largest state forest in the state of Oregon. Excuse me. And so where we go with this, I've not heard a convincing argument that there should be something other than the option 3 that essentially protects the schools and puts some money back into the counties as well. And I think it's important to remember there are, I believe, 21 special districts in the state of in Tillamook County. And 16 of those, the last time I did a count of it, get some kind of money out of the forests. So this is not a trivial matter. This is actually dollars and cents. Some of them are quite modest, meaning just maybe a few $1,000s, if that. Others, it's substantial, well into 6 figures. And of course, the county gets anywhere between 3 to as much as 7 or 7.5 million over past years. And so what this plan has done, in my judgment, and I talked about this in some detail last night with the Fair Board actually, is we've taken what was uncertainty and basically a sine wave of going up and down with the money to something that's more predictable, but it's also considerably less in many respects. And as a result of the forest management, or the habitat conservation plan, I should say, another roughly 1/3 of the forest was taken out of production. There are approximately 300,000 acres in Tillamook County, and then some more in Clatsop and Washington. And there were about 200,000 that were, for the last quite number of years, available for harvest through the Department of Forestry. And by going to this new plan, another 1/3 has been taken away. So of the 300,000, only 100,000 remain harvestable timber, round numbers. And that's a pretty big chunk. And the reason that they got there, at least in part, was because of 2 creatures that are on the endangered list. One is the marbled murrelet, and the other is a spotted owl. And there are plenty of people around Oregon who, when you say those words, they step back into their home to get a gun and see if they can fix the problem. But that's kind of a side issue. But it is what it is. And by the way, that plan was adopted by the Board of Forestry, which is appointed by the governor, by 1 vote. The vote was 4-3. So one individual appointed by the governor of Oregon changed the circumstances in Northwest Oregon for the next 70 years. And that's a big deal. And so for my part, I think I understand the basics, but certainly we'll look to Commissioner Scar and further meetings, and I'll probably ask for maybe an individual meeting with some people at AOC, Association of Oregon Counties, to make sure I understand the nuances of this. My concern would be, I think, and you've maybe alluded to this as well, the 3 counties that we're talking about are 3 of 12.
There's
There's
14, yeah,
14.
yeah, there's 15 in the group, but one of them has a separate habitat conservation plan. So there are
So it's
14
14.
counties under this habitat conservation plan
And
specifically.
the three, meaning the three of us in the northwest corner, probably account for 75 or 80+% of what we're talking about. And so I have some concerns that other counties won't see this as big a deal, or, you know, what they can say, well, you know, here's what this works for us, and we're not going to spend a lot of time analyzing it. And I think we let that happen at our peril. So we need to pay very close attention to what's happening and what's best for Tillamook County and our schools and other districts as well. So I'm starting to get my arms around this, but by no means can I say I understand it all, but I'm certainly willing to learn, and I will vote on behalf of Tillamook County for what does, and maybe I'll put it this way, the least worst option.
Yeah, and I think that's the frustration, is we are at the least worst option. And I think our question, you know, that we've been talking about at the small table continues to be, do we move something forward and accept the least worst option? Do we stand in opposition and try to pull it back to the table for additional conversation and hopefully additional engagement and support through the governor's office? Do we move it forward with a series of caveats that says we're willing to explore the concept, but we do not support any specific bill at this time or specific solution at this time because there's too many unknowns in it. So, you know, we're at a point where do we pull the stop cord and just say there's no future in any way for any of these options, or do we vote to move one forward for further exploration? And it's a challenging and a challenging decision to make. We don't want to walk away from the governor's table. That's the pull the stop cord that doesn't feel like the right option, but placing our schools in jeopardy absolutely doesn't feel like the right option. And so that's the challenge. And Tillamook County really is different than even Washington and Clatsop because of the amount of timber our schools receive. The other two counties have a different scenario, which means Tillamook County really is looking at we're different, and the decision we need to make may be very different than the one that other counties need to make. So it's important that we are really understanding our situation, understanding its differences related to the amount of timber our schools receive, and really the lack of what would be state funding to backfill them. Other districts will receive some amount of backfill revenue. Ours will not. So it's a very different scenario for us. And we've run a lot of numbers, and like I said, I encourage you to perhaps reach out to Brandon to see those numbers, to show how at the end of the day, how much does it actually return to the county to cover our shortfall, which is important for things like the Sheriff's Department, which we've talked about at length. That's our largest general fund department. And we need revenue to keep that strong and growing to meet the needs of our community, but not wanting to do it on the backs of schools. So it is a very complex numerical formula that's being addressed, and how that may impact the county. So yeah, I wish it was a clear and obvious answer, but you're also dealing in state politics at the same time. So
Well, it's been well, the whole I guess the whole process going back really to the first part of the year when this matter came up, and then the Habitat Conservation Plan was actually coming to closure in one form or another, and it was voted on. I think it was in May or June. It's been a couple of months now, but that's been under conversation for a long time, and it's evolved into where we are today. And there are other parts to it, as I understand it. For example, the Board of Forestry itself receives no money from the state's general fund. They have funded themselves over the years, the Department of Forestry, with a certain portion of the harvest money that was paid for harvesting the trees in the Tillamook Forest. they have more than a passing interest in this themselves, because if they get defunded under some scenario, they have to go to the legislature and beg to be backfilled in some way, as I understand it. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and the challenge for that has been, in the seats at the small table have been the counties and the governor's office. Board and the Department of Forestry is not in that conversation with us. The schools are not in that conversation with us at that small table. So we, once the small table was released, to begin to open that conversation, but it's still a limited opportunity to work with the department. As a state department, they're not able to be in this conversation with us, which makes it even more challenging to determine. We do know that they did not put additional money into their budget request for this coming year, nor did they put forward what would be considered a policy option package for this long session. So, and that may simply be because the Habitat Conservation Plan, while currently at the federal level for approval, is not in play yet and will not theoretically be in play until the next session. That said, we're already using it to harvest because we are already protecting habitat conservation areas, because assuming that this plan will be approved, we need those habitat conservation areas still untouched. So we are functioning under it in many ways, although it's not actually active. So that does impact the ODF's ability to go to the legislature at this point in time and ask for additional revenue. So when we talk about the revenue split, which currently is a revenue split, we do share with the department. I believe it's 63-37-ish. There's some point something in there where we get the 63 and they get the 37, but they're going to see a reduced revenue, as are we. So it's again, the complexity of it. It's, I keep saying it's akin to a pie, right? The pie is the amount of revenue that is coming off the forest, and we're trying to solve this problem by reslicing the pie, but we're not adding any more filling to the pie to make it any bigger. And that therein, I think, lies the greatest challenge of trying to solve this problem. And the hope was that the school equalization fund was going to be a way to add to that pie. But it really, what we've been told by the schools is that's not an accurate representation. And in Tillamook County in particular, that we will not have a pie that grows by school equalization for 2 of our 3 districts. So we have a challenge in front of us.
Well, and just for people who might be watching separately from all of this, the Jewell School District, which is a small district in Clatsop County, has filed a lawsuit to I don't know if it's to overturn, but at least develop standing so they can come to the table as well. And I'm not sure what all their complaint is, but it's another just piece of the puzzle. There are people looking, and there are I'm not sure they're winners and losers. So, well, and there may be when it's all said and done. But my basic premise of anything like this, where I've represented some organization, is first, same as I guess a medical profession, is first do no harm. And in our case, where the schools depend on the harvest as well, and a lot of other organizations, my inclination is to absolutely not disturb what's happening now or make it worse. If we can make it, if the options before us are the least horrible option, as I said, then that's where I would go. But I would like to keep the status quo and have a path forward if we can. But there's so many moving parts. I'll do my best to try and learn all of them, and no doubt we'll have another discussion. I also want to hear what Commissioner Bell has to say. I know she maybe has not been quite as close as you have, or I have even, but she's a smart lady, and certainly I can't imagine would want to do anything other than what we're talking about, but she can speak for herself. So I think we can resume this conversation a week from today, because the voting is the day following, as I recall. A week from Thursday. So I want to be sure that we have a single voice coming out of Tillamook County, and that it's a considered voice, that we've said, well, we like this one better because it's got shiny stuff on it. That's not at all where any of us are heading. We want to do the least amount of harm and provide the most amount of options going forward, understanding it's a finite resource, and it is what it is, and there are other players at the table.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity just to catch you up to this, and we'll look forward to the full conversation next week because it will be a vote of impact. And we need to make
Yeah.
sure we're understanding the complexities that underlie it.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for going to those meetings. I know some you've done online, many of them you've gone over to Salem, and you sit with those folks, and this is for people watching. Again, what you're hearing here is sausage being made. That's a common phrase: is the government is at work, and then you don't want to ever see that inside because it's ugly and complicated. But the truth is, it's human beings having philosophical discussions about how do we live. And it's
Absolutely.
it's as
And
simple as that.
yeah, had anyone been a fly on the wall at our small table meetings, you would see a lot of passionate people working through this. We all have our concerns and our fears and our own situations. And so trying to bring together the small table group, which is 5 of us, then to bring together the 14 counties that are affected, it is sausage making, and it is heated at times. We're really trying to find a pathway forward that's best for everyone. And boy, that is not an obvious pathway.
No, it's not. And one of the things I'll now mention again is the decisions made here, although they may be able to be modified down the road, but we're looking at a plan that is 70 years long.
Yeah.
And all my public policy stuff over the years in one organization or another, I have never seen that piece of public policy that's supposed to carry on for 70 years, more or less untouched. I just can't conceive of that. We elect our leaders every 4 years, and when they can change this and that, and the Supreme Court does what they do and overturns things. But to say this is the way it's going to be for 70 years, that's a bit of an anomaly, I believe, and maybe it'll last that long, maybe it won't, and maybe the next people who are holding office somewhere will figure out a way to throw it out and start over. But, for the time being, no, we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that makes it even more important that we have a considered and acceptable way forward, at least for the county's part, and understanding there are others who get to vote, and I believe everybody has an equal vote. So, we shall see. So with that, anything else you'd like to add to that conversation?
No, thank you.
Commissioner?
Nope.
Well, thank you for your work on this, and we'll have this discussion again, and maybe a little more decision-making on our part as to how we go forward and represent the county next week. So I do have a couple of things to read before we adjourn our meeting. One is there is no board briefing scheduled for Wednesday, September 4. That would be today. So we will not meet this afternoon. And the next one, the commissioners will attend a budget committee roundtable meeting on Wednesday, September 11, 2024 at 1:00 p.m. to discuss upcoming budget planning. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook. The teleconference number is 1-971-254-3149. Conference ID is 866-914-607#. So with that, is there any other matter to come before the board today? Hearing none, we will adjourn at 11:08 a.m.